All righty. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Journey to Well. So, I am with Kimberly Sumpter today. She is someone that I met networking, which was kind of fun. Not someone I met virtually. I feel like at least 80% of my podcast guests and friends I've met online over the past year. So, I guess I did meet you virtually, right? I haven't met you in
Mhm.
person, but I didn't meet you on Instagram, is what I mean.
Right.
So, Kimberly is a 4-6 sacral generator in human design. So, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And she is also a podcaster. So, I'm thrilled to have a chat with a fellow podcaster. We're going to be chatting about discovering your purpose. I would love to hear your life journey and what has brought you to where you are today. So, first of all, let's let you introduce yourself. Who is Kimberly? And then we will dive
Mhm.
into the combo.
All right. First of all, thank you so much, Hannah, for inviting me. I get so excited um, to talk to other podcasters and be on other podcasts. It's just like this energy that we have with being podcasters together. But I am just going to start off with a basic about who I am. And typically, I think most people talk about what they do. And I think for this conversation, if I were to say that I was something, I would say first and foremost that I'm Kimberly Sumpter and I am a creative. And I think that really defines me in everything that I do, whether it be in my workspace, whether it be in my business. Creativity is so important to me. So I am a creative. I am also a podcaster and I am an entrepreneur by accident. We can maybe talk a little bit about how that happened. And that's it. And I think that really fully defines who I am. As you get to know me a little bit more, you'll know how passionate I am about creativity. And again, it bleeds into everything that I do in my life.
I love that. Well, we definitely have to talk about how you accidentally became an
Mhm.
entrepreneur because my story is different. Like, well, looking back, I was like, both of my parents are entrepreneurs, so it totally makes sense that that's the
Mhm.
path that I took. So I'm curious to hear your journey there.
Yeah, so I accidentally fell into entrepreneurship when I was making candles. This was maybe about 10 years ago. I started making candles, always loved them, was
Mm.
buying candles from someone who wasn't consistently making them. So every time I wanted to get one and purchase and support her, it was kind of like an up and down with her business. So my intention really was not to start making candles to sell them. It was just for me to have them when I wanted them, right? So that's where it started. But I had a friend of mine, someone who is now a friend of mine, saw that I was posting content on social media about my candles and pictures and things of that nature about the candles. And they inboxed me in Facebook and said, "Hey, there's a program that I think you might be interested in." And it was for locals in Jersey City to be able to get an opportunity to learn how to start and grow a business. She told me at that moment that I was in business, right? So if you were having a product and it's something that people are willing to purchase, you should be selling it. You should not be giving it away. And that's what I was
Mm.
doing. So that really was kind of the accidental part. I did take the course. I did realize that I have an actual viable business. And then at that point, I started selling my candles. So I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs, never thought about entrepreneurship, started that journey of entrepreneurship when I was 45 years old. My father was a police officer, here locally in Jersey. And my mother was a school teacher. And, again, my path was not to go into entrepreneurship, didn't even, and it's still a path that's so interesting now as I look back at where I started, right, with not
Mm.
having entrepreneurship in my mind to now I actually work as a senior manager for the organization that I took the entrepreneurial class in, which is so full circle. It's
Wow.
just really interesting. So we never know what is going to happen. We don't know what conversation could lead into something that could ultimately change your life or bring your life into a direction that you never even thought of. So,
Mm. And being
yeah.
open to that, right? Like so many
Yes.
times I wonder how many doors we've closed ourselves and how many doors our best friends or partners have closed because somebody will say something, we'll get that invitation or we'll get that opportunity. And we're like so close minded, like, no way, I am not an entrepreneur at all. Like,
Right.
what a great friend and colleague to bring that up to you and then
Hmm.
extend that invitation to explore. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Like, sometimes we
Hmm.
feel that's really what our purpose is. Sometimes we feel like, well, I tried it and it didn't work out
Hmm. Hmm.
or I
And that's
didn't
and
like it.
that's why it's also really important too for people to be able to convey to other people what they see in them, because sometimes people see things in us that we don't see in ourselves, right? She obviously knew that I did not know anything about entrepreneurship, selling,
Yeah.
but she saw the possibilities, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity and the fact that she was comfortable enough to send me an inbox, and tell me what she saw, what
Mhm.
her perception was of what this could potentially be for me. So I'm really thankful for that.
Mm, I was just having a conversation with one of my friends about this, and because she kind of was calling me out about something, and I was like,
Hmm.
"Thank you so much," because
Hmm.
I don't see everything. I don't know everything. I don't have the same perspective that you have.
Right.
Um, and when we're able to do that with love and with compassion and with grace, not
Hmm.
just calling out everything that we don't like
Yes.
about someone.
Yes.
It can be really life changing. It really can. So
Hmm.
tell me this full circle moment. Tell me what you do in your position now,
Hmm.
and because you help other entrepreneurs.
I do. So I am a senior manager of a nonprofit organization that's based in Jersey City, New Jersey. So basically, what this organization does is it offers, their signature offer is our Community Business Academy, and it is open to any and all entrepreneurs. It used to be just in the state of New Jersey, but now we accept entrepreneurs from all around,
Oh, cool.
from anywhere in the United States, thanks to COVID, right? Because now things are virtual. So it is a 12-week entrepreneurial program that teaches aspiring entrepreneurs and those who are in business who want to try to level up and they just need some guidance how to sustain their businesses.
Mm.
So I went through the program, and it was just an amazing opportunity for me to understand, not only how do you market your business, how do you make the product, all those things, right? And I think a lot of times, especially with creatives, we are so passionate about the thing that we do that we want to give it all away. We just want to share the love with everyone for the thing that we create.
Yeah.
But this program made me understand that yes, I can have that feeling, but I can also make money from this as well,
Yeah.
and make that an opportunity for myself. So started the program, uh, did really well, graduated from the program, became a coach, again, someone who saw something in me, even though I did not see that in myself. Because how am I going
Mm.
to coach other people when I'm just starting out in my business? Didn't even think about entrepreneurship or know anything about business 2.5 years prior. But again, when people see things in you, right, they also, I feel, open the opportunity for you to have access to learning about the thing, right? So
Hmm.
they were also giving with information to get me to where I needed to be in order to help other people. Plus, it was my experience, right? It was me sharing my experience as an entrepreneur. And no matter where you are, no matter how well versed you are in any topic, you can always learn from those that you're teaching. So it was a process for me. But kind of moving back just a little bit to that, before I even went into the Community Business Academy and started learning about all the things I needed to do to work on my business, I was challenged to go into a pitch competition. And I was so extremely nervous. It was like a no for me. But she encouraged me to do it. And she said, you have a really interesting product. I think you should consider. and think about just pitching it, right? So I went in, and by the way, what I was making scented candles, but I was specializing in candles where you embed images in the candles.
Hmm.
So which I'll show you some pictures of at some point. It was really cool,
Please.
right? Um, so it was really interesting, and she thought it was very different. And I just took the chance. I figured, why not? I'd never pitched before. I didn't know how to pitch. But I knew that I really believed in what it was that I was doing. And I was getting a lot of positive feedback from those who were purchasing, or
Hmm.
who I was giving those candles, I guess, to that point, too. And wound up winning second place in the competition, $7,500. So
Wow.
that not only kickstarted my business, but it also kickstarted the confidence that I needed in order to now consider myself as an entrepreneur. And really, it got me to really wanting to be open to learning as much as I could about entrepreneurship and how to do all that I could in order to build and sustain this business. So yeah.
Hmm. I love your story. I have to point out a few human design things because this is just how my brain works. And
Mhm.
one of the reasons that I talk so much about human design on podcasts in more of a conversational way is because this is one of the best ways that I learn. And all I can
Mhm.
do is share the best tools and the best things for me. So human design, if you're new to human design, or if you like making these small connections, Kimberly is a 4-6, which is the profile line. So we all have a different profile line. We actually have two different lines. The 4 and the 6 represent two different things. The 4 represents what we call our conscious line. The 6 represents our unconscious line. So a lot of times when we're talking about human design, we say that you might feel a little bit more aligned, or you might recognize a little bit more of that first line than you do the second line. Another way that we
Mhm.
talk about it is that that first line needs to be mastered or recognized or aligned before you move into the second line. So the 4 line is called the people person. And it's not necessarily that you're super outgoing or that you love people and you want to be around people all the time. I mean, there's definitely that aspect to it. But the most cool thing here with you as I'm hearing your story is that 4s, they make the most progress, I guess we could say. They take the biggest steps, the biggest opportunities come to them through other people and their
Mhm.
relationships. So when you're saying, this person, this colleague reached out to me and said, "Hey, you have a business." That's your opportunity as a generator. Your and as your energy type is, your invitation is to wait to respond. So we need this response. So you get this opportunity to respond to. Then you went to this pitch competition and won, which is wild, through somebody, through a relationship that you had. Somebody invited you there. I don't have a 4 line, so it doesn't mean that that situation wouldn't happen to me, but I can see much much more likely that I
Mhm.
just join this pitch competition, right? Like I find it on Google, or I'm in a networking group and somebody mentions it, and that's my invitation, something to respond to, and then I go join it. So there's that. And then the second thing I want to say, and then I want to dive into talking about purpose. But the
Mhm.
second thing I want to say about your human design, the second line is a 6 line. The 6 line is a little bit complex because 6 lines actually live what we call kind of 3 different lives, 3 different stages. And the first stage is age 0 to 30 ish, or depending, this is where astrology comes in, depending on your Saturn return.
Mhm.
Um, and this is a big stage of trial and error, learning through trial and error, learning through experimentation. So maybe you had a bunch of jobs when you were in your 20s, or maybe you moved around a lot, or maybe you're just really trying to find what your purpose was when you were 0 to 30. And then 30 to around 50, or your Chiron return, that's when you're kind of, we call it going up on the roof. So that's when you really take this beautiful time of um, looking down and gaining perspective. And like 30 to 50 tends to be a little bit more of an introverted time for 6 lines in the span of their lifetime, because you're really processing a lot and processing all of that trial and error, everything that you experimented with. You're like, okay, now let me step back, let me write all my notes and see what worked, what didn't work. And then 50 plus, 50-ish plus, right? Then you're going back down, and this is the 6th line, is called the wise sage. So this is when you bring all of your experimentation, all of your trial and error, all of your learning, and you bring it to the world through, I don't know, maybe a podcast. And you
Mm,
bring that wisdom that you've moved your life through and learned to the public.
mm,
So
mm.
just listening to your story, I mean, I don't know you that well. So,
Right.
and human design is not something that puts us in a box. One of the ways that you introduce yourself, I think, is beautiful, which, I have the same idea. If you listen to my podcast, I
Mhm.
always say, I'm not looking to put you in a box. Like, even when we're doing our intros, like, I want to see what kind of box you're going to put yourself in, because
Right.
we all put ourselves in these categories, but not to consume us and not to confine us. And human design is just a tool to explore and to kind of learn. So I like making those little
Wow.
connections and just see how it aligns in your life. Uh,
Well, let me tell you, I am
yeah.
definitely an introvert for sure, right?
Yeah.
I am actually in the process right now of something that you said where it's now taking a step back, gathering and looking at all the information over time that I've gathered and
Mhm.
now bringing this out. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now in my business.
Yeah.
Just, I'm very I've learned and I have learned, and I think maybe with age and maturity, I have learned, number one, to give myself some grace, right? And everything doesn't have to be perfect. But I also learned that in order for you to get the feedback and to get better at the thing that you are doing, you have to be able to put it out there.
Mm.
You got to put it out there and see what returns back to you. Because if you don't, right, you don't know how to improve it. You don't know what to correct. You don't know any of those things because it's all stuck in your head only.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting that you said that because that is so true. That's really the path that I'm on right now. And as far as my introvertedness, I am a people person slash introvert at the same time. I don't know if that's possible.
I
I
say I'm an
like,
introverted extrovert.
yes, 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 yes. That's it right there. That's it.
Yeah. That's I don't I'm the same way. I'm like, I say that because I don't gain energy from other people. I gain
Hmm.
energy when I'm by myself, but
Mm,
I don't want to be by
yep.
myself all the time. I
Hmm.
just don't also want to be with people all the time.
There you go. We're right here. I got
Yep.
you. That's exactly it. Yep. That's it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So let's have a conversation about purpose. That was one of the things that
Mhm.
you shared that you really love talking about. It's something I'm obsessed with talking about, partly because it's such a big topic. How do we find
Mhm.
our purpose? How do we find our purpose and then have that align with our career and with our
Mhm.
lifestyle and with our partnerships and with our relationships? So I'm very curious to hear what you have to say. And do you
Mhm.
work with people coaching, or within your business? Do you work with people navigating these?
Mhm. So when it comes to purpose for me, I don't necessarily feel that we find our purpose. I believe that our purpose finds us. And I think
Mm.
that we evolve so much in life. What I thought was my purpose in my 20s turned out not to be in my 50s.
Yeah.
So I think that that purpose is really what is purposeful at the moment. And I don't think we necessarily should have to strive for finding our purpose in life because we live life every single day. We are dealt with different situations every single day. We're in different spaces every day. We deal with different people every day. And I think that is what builds, what our purpose will be in the moment. So
Hmm.
I feel for me right now, I feel that that is what I am going to take for myself because it takes a lot of pressure off of myself to feel that if this is my purpose, then I should be at this level of doing something, right? I don't want to do that. I want to really kind of live in the space of where I am right now. So, for example, I feel that my purpose right now, right, is to help women share their stories, right? And that comes from me being an introverted person, me not always being able to share out what my feelings were, me holding myself back. And when I got through that, I felt it was important for me to share that part of myself with others and to open up a space for other women who have something to say, but they just don't know how to say it. So
Mm,
I'm using that right now, my purpose, um, for helping other women to do that with my podcast to inspire community. I felt that my purpose 10 years ago was to be an entrepreneur who was selling and making candles, right? That was purposeful at the time. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. But that shifted and it changed.
mhm,
I changed, I evolved. So I think that's really for me what I think of as far as purpose is concerned. I think purpose found me. And I think what I can control in regards to purpose is me being purposeful in everything that I do, in every moment, with every conversation, with every person. So that's how I kind of like to shape that.
mm. Giving yourself permission to change over
Mhm.
and over again. One of the most profound memories of my life is I was sitting in regards to purpose. I was sitting in my college orientation first day. It was the first time I had ever been to North Carolina. I chose to go to a university where I didn't know anyone.
Mhm.
And we sat down in the auditorium or whatever. Um, and one of the people that was speaking, he said some statistic. I don't know what the actual statistic is, like 80% or whatever, of
Mhm.
people will change their careers like 10 times throughout their life. And I was going to school. I entered high school knowing, in quotation marks, knowing what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, which was speech language pathology. And I wanted to be a speech pathologist. And I graduated high school. I applied and decided to go to this university because it had a good speech path program. And he said that first day of orientation. And I'm like, what is this man saying? Like, no, I'm going to do speech pathology for the rest of my life. And, fast forward 6.5 years, I had my master's degree. I was about 6 months into my first big girl, full time corporate job, dream job, right? I'm working in a hospital. That's what I wanted to do. I'm doing outpatient and inpatient. I have a great team of other therapists around me. And I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I can't imagine doing, for me, it was, I couldn't imagine doing the 9 to 5 life. And I felt like I had no life at all. I would just work all week, recover on Saturday, prep on Sunday, and then work all week.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's so wild to think of those two moments
Mhm.
in my mind. And really, I mean, that's something I would go back and say to my younger self, or say to anyone, no matter how young or how old you are, giving yourself the permission, gifting yourself the permission to evolve and change. And I love that you said my purpose in my 20s or 30s was candles, and my purpose and now is completely different.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean that you failed. I think for
That's right.
me, that's a big thing, is like, at least, I mean, 20, however old I was, 20, whatever year old me doing speech pathology, that's what was running through my
Mhm.
mind is, oh my God, if I don't do speech pathology, then I failed.
And maybe what it is that you finished the assignment. If we look
Mm,
at it as we finished the assignment and now it's time to move on to either the next chapter or the next assignment, maybe if we put it in that way, right, and we
mm,
internalize it in that way, it seems more like a closure,
mm,
leading into something else that's opening up for us. And then
mm,
that's where we don't box ourselves in that one thing. When I was in college as well, I was studying special ed education. And
Hmm.
we went on a field trip to one of the state schools, just to, to look at the facility and all of that. And the entire trip, I cried when we got to the facility because my heart was so full for looking at people who were my age, who were challenged, either physically challenged or mentally challenged. And that's, and it just, I don't know, it was something that just really was hard for me to
Yeah.
look at, right? And my professor said to me, when we got back to the campus, she said, "This is not for you. This is not what you're meant to do." And that hurt me because
Hmm.
I felt like, why is it not, right? Because I
Yeah.
have a passion for that. And it moved me away from the space of special ed because I believe what she was trying to say to me is that if I can't go into the situation feeling sorry for. And if I do that, I'm not going to be able to help people
Mm.
if I stay in that space. And that's what I gathered from that even years later as I think about that. So that is what I thought I was meant to do. But that conversation changed the whole direction of what I wound up doing ultimately, like in my life, which is really interesting. So
Hmm. Hmm. I love what you said of it's closing a chapter. I heard,
mhm,
I want to maybe squirrel, but more just make a connection. I was listening to this podcast, and she had that same idea with relationships, and
mhm,
she was a spiritual person, so when we're using the term like soul contracts, right, which you
mhm,
can call a relationship or a soul contract, whatever works for you wording wise.
mhm,
And she said soul contracts, we have soul contracts with every single person that we meet, and some soul contracts last longer than others. Some last this one encounter at a grocery store. Some soul contracts last 40, 50 years, and it could be a marriage, it could be a best friendship, whatever. And when a soul contract, when you end a relationship, or when a relationship ends, and it doesn't have to be a romantic one, although I think it speaks the most to romantic relationships to me, is it's not that that relationship failed, or that we always think of breakups like the other person has to be such a terrible person, right?
mhm,
Like that's why the relationship didn't work out, was because they were just such a terrible person, or it was just such a toxic relationship. And that's not negating toxic and unhealthy relationships at all, but it can also be that your soul contract ended, that was your soul contract. You learned
mhm,
from that person, you grew together for however long that relationship lasted, friendship, intimate relationship, and then you moved on,
mhm,
and you needed that, just like you
mhm,
needed that job, or you needed that situation where that person told you this isn't for you, even though you thought that it was for you for, however
mhm,
many years. And then that door closed, and there's that completion. To
mhm.
me, that's exactly what I thought when you said that, because to me, that brings me so much clarity and calm, like almost like this exhale of,
Right,
we don't have to tell ourselves these stories of, wow, that was a failed relationship, or
right.
that was a waste. That was a waste of my
Mhm,
time. That was a waste of my life. I
mhm,
think that perspective, oh, I want to invite everyone to just shift that, because that's such a
mhm.
powerful mindset shift of everything that you've learned in your life has led you to here,
Right.
mistakes and all, if you call them mistakes or if you don't.
That is
Interesting.
correct. That is correct. And you try to get whatever it is, the lesson, learn the lesson in everything.
Mm,
Even if it appears, especially in relationships, that the other person was the problem, the other person did something so egregious to make this end, what is the lesson that you'll learn after it's all said and done, right? And even if they did all the quote unquote bad things, maybe the lesson for you is, now what you will tolerate and not tolerate moving forward in the next chapter, in the next relationship.
right.
You'll now look at the signs that maybe you missed initially, in the past relationship that now you can see moving forward in your next relationship. So I think there's a learning opportunity in everything that happens to us and
Mhm.
everything that happens and everything that we are, a part of, even though it doesn't necessarily feel good, but there is something to be learned from it. There's something that we
Yeah.
can get to make us better.
Yeah. It doesn't always feel good, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yes,
Growth doesn't always feel good.
that is correct.
It's never easy, whether you're
Hmm.
trying to grow your muscles at the gym or you're
Hmm.
trying to
Oh yeah.
grow your relationship or you're
Yes.
trying to grow your business.
Hmm.
So what I have one last question and then a couple closing thoughts.
Hmm.
What would you say to someone that is on this journey? They would consider, I'm on this journey of discovering my purpose. Maybe they're at this crossroads moment where they just got presented with this information of where they thought they were going or where they
Hmm.
wanted to be going.
Hmm.
Just that door just closed, and now they're in that pivot point of, okay, well, maybe I need to rediscover what my purpose is now in this season of my life. What would you say to that person to give them a little bit of advice where to go?
I would say lean into all the things that make you feel good, the
Mm,
things that make you happy, the things that you're good at, the things that you can do with your eyes closed, the things that
mm,
you feel that you are passionate about. I would say always lean into that. Even if you have something else going on, there's you are able to take on more things and enjoy more than one thing. So I would say that. I would also say, don't be afraid to make a change.
mm,
If you look and you assess something and you look at the pros and cons of it, you look at whether this is something that you truly want to invest your time, your money, your life, and all those things to. um, don't be afraid to be okay with the fact that maybe you want to make a change or you've changed your mind. Like
mm,
that is okay. So I think more than anything, it's really about just being open to all the things, not just the one thing, being open to all the things. One thing that I do is I keep a journal with me and I brain dump. I write
mm,
down ideas and things that come to my mind that I want to try, I want to do, that I like, or random ideas that come to me. And I guess that's a part of me being creative, the
yeah.
creative side of me. There are lots of different things that I want to do creatively. And what I find is that I may write this down today, August 9th, 2024, but what I wrote down today may not be something that I need to pick up until August 9th, 2025.
Mm-hmm.
But just keeping those ideas and keeping that, because I think it always makes me feel like there's always something else on the horizon for me. It may not be right now, but there's something else that I can potentially do. So I would just say, I would suggest that. I hope that that answered the question. I hope that
It
answered it.
did, absolutely. I mean, it
Yeah.
answered the question 10 different ways, 10 different ideas. I think that that's so helpful and so many great ideas, especially in human design terms, we say find what lights you up, find what brings
Mm-hmm.
you energy. I think you said that
Mm-hmm.
what brings you energy, and
Mm-hmm.
especially sacral authorities, which you're a sacral authority. I'm also a sacral authority. I would say sacral and splenic authorities, but find what, when you think about it, even I say, like when you think about it, does it make you excited? Do you feel
Mm-hmm.
that it's
Mm-hmm.
bringing a little bit more curiosity? Like, I want to
Mm-hmm.
learn a little bit more about that. Or does it make you feel like this inner fire or this inner light turns on? And explore that and
Explore it.
see
Mhm.
where it takes you.
And stay and I would say stay very focused on what it is that you
Mm,
want for yourself, and don't let anyone else's opinions kind of penetrate what
yeah.
you think your focus is for yourself, because that's the thing that sometimes is, and that could have very well have been the thing with me in college, right? um with listening to my professor,
Hmm.
but that penetrated me deep,
Yeah.
right? So I would say just keep your own focus, and we don't have to ask for permission from everybody. We don't have to tell everybody what it is that we're doing. We
Hmm.
just don't have to. We don't have to run it past our best friend necessarily, or our mom or our husband. Some things are just meant for us to
Yeah.
keep here and for us to do for ourselves. And then
Mhm.
everybody else sees it when it's done. As it's then that's the thing. Just do that.
Amen. I
Yeah.
agree. I couldn't agree more. So what, when you're thinking about, when you were thinking about coming on this podcast,
Mhm.
or when you are on your own podcast, what is something that your core message, what's something that you want the whole world to know? If you were standing on a stage right now and you had an
Mhm.
opportunity, what would you share?
I believe that everyone has a message to share. I believe that. I really do. I believe that your authentic self, your authenticity, the things that are important to you are meant to be shared with others, right? And I feel that sometimes we're afraid because we're afraid of judgment. We're afraid of what other people may think. We may be afraid of not being good enough. Please get out of that. And I'm telling you that as someone who is now in, my mid 50s, that I spent so many years worried about what others thought about me,
Hmm.
what other people approved of or what they didn't. I think that your voice is valuable and you need to share it. So that is really truly my message. And I also think that it is very important for you to share that message in a way where it brings light and love to others, right? Because what we say is very powerful, and how we say it is even more powerful. You may say the right thing, but the way that you convey it may not land right. So it
Mhm.
doesn't do what the intention was. So utilizing your voice and also utilizing it in a way where it just brings so much more joy and happiness to where we are together in this world is what my message would be.
Mm. Follow up. How do you overcome? How do you work? And it's not ever overcoming. How do you work on the not good enough? What I have to say doesn't matter.
Mhm.
What I don't have a message. My message is not
Mhm.
important.
You work on it by, even though you're believing it, right? I think even though this may be what's in your head, I think your actions have to be the opposite of the negative belief that you have.
Nice.
We just have to practice doing it regardless. It's almost like the saying, doing it afraid. I'm so terrified to do this thing. But in order for you to get over that hump, you have to do it afraid.
Mhm.
And just one other example for me is I am and was, I'm going to say was afraid to fly.
Okay.
And I missed out on so many opportunities over so many years because of it. And I just recently, a couple of months ago, visited my best friend in Dallas. And it was the hardest but most rewarding thing that I could have done, because what I realized was I had spent so many years in a state of fear for something that didn't exist,
Wow.
that it took away so many opportunities. And I reminded myself on that trip why I was going and what the good thing would be on the other end. And that
Mm.
was to see the person that I truly love, my friend, my best friend, all of that. So I would just say, in that, even though your mind is telling you one thing, I think your actions need to move in the direction where your heart knows that's where you need to be. You're capable of being there, and you deserve to be in that good space that you're trying to get to.
Mm. I love that. And I love that invitation of do the opposite of what your mind's thinking.
Mhm,
Because we can get stuck. We can get very stuck in the
mhm,
stories that we tell ourselves, and we can get stuck in the fear
mhm,
or get stuck in that, especially if it's something that someone else said to us, right? That
mhm.
kind of proved this thought of we're not enough. And then somebody else says something that solidifies that in our brain. How do you break that cycle?
Right.
Doing by action, doing the opposite of what your brain's
Mhm.
telling you. I like that. That's going to stick with me. Thank you.
You're
That's powerful.
welcome.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit about your human design. Um, I so I want to stick with the theme of us talking about purpose. So how to discover your purpose. So for those of you that are on this human design journey, you're exploring human design, the 3 areas I would say would help navigate discovering this discovery of purpose, which is a never ending, always evolving thing, I would say would be look at your energy type, look at your authority. So look at your authority is really how I believe your authority is how your body speaks to you in sharing your yes or your no. So discovering that like yes or that no in your body, how does that show up? For sacral authorities, it's a very big bodily response. So it's that like pull forward, that opening up, that feeling lit up, feeling a little bit more energy. That would be some indications of a yes. For a no, it might be that pulling back. It might feel a contraction. You might actually feel like your body contract, your muscles tense a little bit, or it might feel like a lack of energy. The one thing I've talked about it, I think one other podcast episode, but I'm obsessed with it, is called your incarnation cross. And there are so many different incarnation crosses. So like we only have 5 different energy types in human design. So you're either a manifesting generator, manifester, projector, or reflector. Like you're one of those 5. But another part of human design, it's a very layered process, I guess, is called your incarnation cross. So yours, Kimberly, they have funny names. So yours is the right angle cross of service 4. But right angle in general is like you have a very right angles. I'm a right angle too. We have a very like personal journey where left angles are a little bit more other people journey. So like I think I shared with you, whether this was on the podcast when we hit record or before, I said, I can only go through, I only share what works for me and what I've gone through, and the biggest tools. That's like very right angle energy for me. But your incarnation cross, the little sentence, is to bring about change and improvement using love and beauty. And I really like that for you.
I like that.
And reading, so for me, human design, like reading that, when I read mine's something about change too, which I think is really funny. Mine's something about helping people overcome this mindset that change is scary and difficult and hard, and actually helping them arrive to this like change is really exciting and change is a good thing. So how can we use that incarnation cross, this invitation of your incarnation cross is your life theme. So like this invitation of my life theme, knowing this, how can I use that in my life, in my business, and in discovering my purpose? And it's not how like, and just navigating. My invitation first and foremost would be look at how you're already doing it, because human design is not this like crazy thing that's gonna tell you who you are, like who you need to be. It's telling you who you already are. So my thought is that you're already bringing about change and improvement. You're improving the world, and just your thought of everyone has a story, that's going to bring about change, and that's going to improve the world. Because when we all authentically share our story, when we all authentically show up, we are bringing about change and positive change in the world. And using love and beauty, you just seem like a loving person to me. And using that, you know, in your life and in your business. But that's a little bit something about your chart, and just for listeners to go look at and find your incarnation cross. I use the My Human Design app if you haven't even checked out your human design yet, and it will come up if you scroll down, and the little sentence will come up, and then if you click on it, it'll have a couple paragraphs about your life theme. But that's another tool that you could use. You know, like life is all about just finding tools and finding what tools work for you. Human design works for me, and that's why I share it. But it might not work for everyone, but it's all about exploring. Yeah. So that's a little human design fun.
That was
Thank you
great.
so much for coming on. Thank you for joining us today. Where can people find you? And specifically, where's your podcast so we can check you out
Yes,
too?
yes, yes, yes. So my podcast is on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's called Sisters Connect, and it's really kind of conversations with women who I've met along my life journey from the time that I was a kid up until now who have inspired me in some way. And we just talk about purpose, entrepreneurship, just kind of girl talk kind of thing, right? So that is, again, you can find me anywhere where you listen to your podcasts. And then my new company, as now I have more than just a candle company, is called Podcast to Inspire.
Love.
And it is a community for for podcasters, and I love working with women, of course, who want to use their voices to inspire, elevate, and uplift their communities, and they want to learn how to podcast and learn how to do it. I teach you how to do it. So I'm a podcast instructor. I'm also a podcast editor, and I do some mentoring as well. So podcasttoinspire.com is where you can find me and connect with me as well.
I love it. It was so good to have you on, Kimberly. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you.